Now, the United Nations Africa Climate Week is currently underway in Gabon's capital, Libreville. More than 1,000 participants are discussing how to mitigate the effects of climate change. While Africa is least responsible for the crisis, it is amongst the regions paying the heaviest price. And countries across the continent have been witnessing raging floods, severe droughts, and extreme weather. Now, the continent has witnessed 4 failed rainy seasons, leading to food insecurity because it largely depends on rain-fed agriculture. The UN estimates that 80 million people in the Horn of Africa are food insecure, and it also warns that the situation will worsen if nothing is done. In the Sahel, water availability has dropped 40% in the last 2 decades. And the United Nations says the forum in Libreville will explore resilience to climate risks, as well as environmental protection and Africa's needs and priorities. The forum will end on Friday.
Climate finance is on top of the agenda because if we look at the finance that has been flowing to Africa, it's a triple, not just a triple, but 90% of that finance is going towards mitigation, and only less than 10% is going towards adaptation and resilience. And yet we know that in Africa, the priority is adaptation and resilience, bearing in mind that Africa's contribution to global emissions is minimal, between 3 to 5%.
Well, I just would like to hone in on the issue or the topic of climate finance and talk about the realities around financing these national determined contributions. We know African nations did request about $1.2 trillion from international financial sources by 2030 in order to implement these contributions, but only a fraction of that money has been put on the table. And understandably, African governments are reluctant to stop, for example, fossil fuel burning in response to the climate crisis. So what other solutions are on the table? What are the alternatives that they're looking to in order to mitigate the effects of climate change on Africa?
Let me start on finance. I think everybody here acknowledges the fact that there are challenges in accessing international climate finance. Africa has not been able to access because of the challenges and the barriers. There are lots of capacity building programs through either UN agencies such as UNDP, multilateral development banks, Africa development banks, including multilateral sources of finance, the Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund. There are lots of capacity building initiatives. On the second issue, Africa is richly endowed in natural resources. So what we are putting on the table, bearing in mind that we have, if you look at just Gabon, the host country, they have vast forest resources. How can we use that to leverage climate finance? Back to where I was saying, how can we then participate in carbon markets with the resources that we have as Africa, forests and cultivated land?
Right.
How do we utilize that? What we call blue carbon, mangrove forests. How can we mangrove forests in our blue economy? How can we use that? Africa is also endowed with mineral resources, what we call minerals for climate action, or what we call transition metals, metals that are needed for wind, for energy, for solar, for electric vehicles. And we know that, for example, the Democratic Republic of Congo has 70% of the global cobalt deposits. Lithium is considered a bottleneck in clean energy transition. There are African countries that are in the top 5 of lithium reserves. But the issue is at hand is, how is it going to be a win-win solution? How is Africa going to benefit from its own natural resources?
Right.
We are looking at issues of value addition. Can Africa move away from just exporting raw lithium to maybe manufacturing lithium ion batteries?